Well, I now have Jacob Lee joining me here on the Soundchecks podcast. Jacob, it is always a pleasure to chat to you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Well, back at you. And I know as someone who has his hands in a lot of many things coming into 2022, there is something I really want to start off and talk about first and foremost before we get into all your amazing adventures. Firstly, new music, new tunes, but it's not just a single here and there or a surprise drop. We're actually building towards an album. Can you tell me how it feels to be releasing music in 2022 and actually building towards this brand new release?
It feels odd, to be honest, because it's been too long since I released anything of purpose. Like last year I put out an EP, but that was literally because I had to wait for contracts to go through for some of these deals behind the scenes. And I guess I've reached a point in my career now where there are people who want to assist in the distribution and promotion of the music. And I feel like I've reached somewhat of a ceiling independently with the solopreneur thing that I've been doing for the past 7 years. So it's kind of been like this full circle moment where I'm ready and also other people are interested, you know? So the conversations have been great, and it's a good problem to have where this is, taking a long time, but still the fact that it has taken almost a year to kind of solidify the contracts and the deals and get these relationships sorted, that has slowed me down a lot. So these songs, which I'm about to release, they've been ready for like a year and a half, and they've just been sitting in the hard drive. So they feel very old to me. I have a whole bunch of new music that's actually like written in the present that has been, written a few weeks ago that I would love to put out now, but I need to get these out first, finish this album, and see what happens after that.
Yeah, and I guess that's where I wanted to kind of go into with this new material, which is new for everyone else except for yourself by the sound of it. But how much of it was written before the world went mad? Like, did you have this stuff kind of in the works? Because I know you previously released Conscience. Like, you've obviously had a lot of stuff on the go and the surprise EP last year as well. But how much was ready to roll? Like, did anything get written because of the pandemic, or what was the inspiration behind the writing of this one?
Majority of it was written prior to the pandemic. There were a few songs which came during, because I just had so much free time. So I kind of spent most of my time either writing music, obviously being a dad, or trying to create new businesses because I was bored, and that's just what I like to do. And some of them have done well and some of them I've completely canned. One was a clothing line, which I thought I would find interesting, but I did not at all.
You never know till you try though. Like that's the thing, you have to try it.
Seriously. And it was fun initially. And it started doing well. I was making all these sales through doing like the e-commerce, drop shipping kind of thing. But it was starting to take up far too much time. And I should have recognized that at the beginning, that any business will take a lot of your time. So I put that to the side. It might be something I pick up again if it feels right, but I definitely threw that off to the side and began more of like a Web3 company instead. But in the midst of that, I was continuously writing music, and a few of those songs I liked more than what I had placed on the album originally. And so I subbed in a few new tracks, and I love the album. I think it's beautiful, even though I'm very removed from the emotional state I was in when I wrote them. I still think they're great songs. So I'm looking forward to getting them out to people and hopefully speeding up that release process again, because I used to put a song out every month and I only put 4 songs out last year, and that was tragic. So it's been nice to see like the listener base stay and they've been, embracing everything else I've been doing in the meantime. So I don't feel like I've disappeared, to be honest. I've been online, but the crux of what I do, unfortunately, wasn't there for a while.
Yeah, and I guess even without a pandemic, you never quite know how things are going to pan out, and the best laid plans can always obviously go a little bit awry at times. But stylistically, I think what I'm seeing in this is you are never someone that is easy to pin down, even though everyone loves to whack labels on people and, pigeonhole people. But I do believe COVID also allowed you to experiment a little bit in some of your, actual instrumentation and stuff too. Am I correct? You actually enhanced a few of your, electronic side of things and embraced a bit more of that. How did that contribute to what your overall aesthetic is sonically with this release?
Definitely. And the reason for that is because prior to COVID, I was always very frightened of jumping into production. And it was a self-limiting belief that I had for no reason whatsoever. And I feel like that occurred because I work with people who are already incredible at it. And I saw such a distance between my ability in production and theirs that I just didn't even start. But through COVID again, I had some time. So I finally got Pro Tools and started messing around and buying a bunch of synths that I probably didn't need. And, spent so much time doing it where I'm nowhere near where I want to be as like a mix engineer. But I was able to almost inject my own instrumentation ideas into the pre-production of the record, where I never could do that because I had someone else pre-producing it for me. Yeah. So I would write everything acoustically, and then they would come through with all the production ideas, where now I'm putting the production ideas forward and allowing them to just tidy it up and add new sounds if they feel like they're necessary. So that's been really good for me to feel so much more empowered in the writing process. And naturally what's happened, which I was surprised by, is I've gone way more electronic. I didn't expect that because all my music's been very acoustic and organic. But I'm just obsessed with that sound and jumping into like modular synthesis and FM synthesis and figuring out all the mathematics behind it. And it's been a learning curve, but it's so much more fun than just playing acoustic guitar, and that's going to be a subjective experience for everyone. But I can say that because my whole career has been acoustic. Yep. So it's been very interesting for me to kind of shift from that completely and move into a very brand new landscape, which I honestly never thought I would touch. So
yeah, which is exciting because as an artist, you are someone so renowned for the intimacy, and like your lyrics are just pure poetry set to music. Like it's incredible how immersive it can be, but somehow you found a way to marry all of this as well as these, skills that you probably would have picked up anyway, but maybe got fast-tracked by the pandemic. But what is it that you hope someone gets out of a Jacob Lee album in 2022? Like, is there any intention, or are you just kind of letting it out into the world? But what do you kind of hope people take away from something like this?
I want the lyrics to still shine through. That's still my priority. And I feel like that will be my priority in every album ever. I just adore words and I like putting them together in a way which evokes some sort of emotion. But I do think the new music has a lot more of a commercial sense to it. There's like an essence of that within it, which I like because I'm at a point, again, where I want to evolve into a brand new level of publicity. And I've always tried to find the balance between entrepreneurship and artistry. And I think that a lot of people either go too far one way. And if you can exist in the middle, you're creating authentic, genuine music whilst doing it in a way that actually is conducive to a commercial environment, So I feel like through this record, I'm getting closer to finding that balance. And people can listen to the music just because they like the melody, or if they dive deeper, they can get a very intricate, delicate kind of story that they might not expect from that type of sound, So it's been fun trying to inject those meaningful lyrics into what usually doesn't have that type of lyricism,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's an interesting side of what's been going on. Like there are so many universal stories that have come out of it, but it can be your completely personal moment, completely personal thing, like alone in your studio, but somehow it just ricochets and resonates out with all these people. But in terms of like how you write still in this current climate, like do you actively seek out to challenge yourself and change how you create these days? Like given you've brought all these new skills into it, like do you constantly look outside for inspiration, or are you like totally insular in how you are inspired creatively?
I think honestly at this stage I've been very insular with it. And that's because I just haven't had many new experiences because of COVID. Like totally. I've not been able to go anywhere and experience new things. The most like brand new exciting thing in my life was becoming a dad, And so there's been a lot of things I've written around that, which I wouldn't say I do have a specific song about that yet. It usually takes, and this might sound odd, but it usually takes my subconscious a little while to digest those big moments to actually articulate them. If I do it too early, it just comes across cliche and forced. I think I've just been trying to figure out the best way to put forth music in a way that helps people still. And that's something that I'm always going to try and implement into the music. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, it always does come across. So it's a very difficult thing to sometimes, reach that fruition. But are there artists that you potentially listened to or have listened to in the past that have done that for you? Like not saying you're channeling them necessarily, but what kind of artists have you connected with that may or may not have impacted on your own eventual creative journey?
I think it changes every year, depending on what I'm interested in. You know, I've been listening to a lot of hip hop, but that doesn't come across in my music, I wouldn't think. The closest thing would be me just chucking a whole bunch of trap hats into my music, and then Matt, my producer, just ripping them out instantly like they don't belong here. They don't belong in this song. But I really am resonating with Childish Gambino and that type of music, very experimental, because he does experiment a lot with soundscapes. So I've found that it's really fun for me to like experiment in a way that is unorthodox and in a way that I usually wouldn't, because I was very tame in how I created through the first few records. It was similar the whole way through. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's done well, but you get to a point as an artist where you do get bored of your sound a little bit, or I did at least. And I've just been trying to do as much as I can, which is removed from that sound, you know, and it's come through in a way which, again, I didn't expect. And I'm looking forward to seeing what people think when they hear it. So.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is sometimes like when a band changes really drastically, people like get a little, like they get very attached to things, and it's like they get very personally involved. But I feel like you've still done it by keeping the Jacob Lee stamp on it. You're just like, you know, pulling people into this next little phase, and it feels like a very natural way to go with it. So I felt like that anyway. Like you listen to it, it's like it's different, but it's still Jacob Lee. So that's, you know, not a very eloquent way to put it, but I really did feel that vibe, and you still get that, you know, little snippets of where you've come from. But it's really exciting to see that evolution. And I don't want to play favorites, but I do know you do have a new track imminently coming out. Can you explain a little bit about this brand new track that's about to release? Yeah,
so this is called Break My Heart Again, and the acoustic version's already out. So we completely shifted the strategy with this one. Usually the produced, like actual commercial radio version will be released, and then you'll do an alternative version just to give something give people something extra. This time, just because we've done that model 3 or 4 times already, we wanted to see if we could reverse that and say, here's the chill version, and wait until you see what we've done to the song now, you know. And interestingly enough, the producer version was done first, and we organized the acoustic one afterwards. But again, because of all the contractual delays and the amendments to those contracts, I was like, I need to release something. So we just turned that song acoustic, threw it out to people, and let people know that there was a much more processed, produced and electronic version coming soon. So there's so much content like that's been organized already with that song. You know, there's like, as usual, like I always do this, but there's a lyric video, a music video, the acoustic session already released. There's a fan video, which has, you know, I think over 100 people from around the world lip syncing to the song. So we organized that, which took a long time. Yeah. And they had to memorize the lyrics. They had to sign like NDAs to not, you know, share the song publicly. And no one did, which is great. Amazing. So yeah, all that content is coming, and it is the catalyst for my new sound. It's the entry point to it. And again, we'll just see what people think. I have a feeling they'll love it. To be honest, I've had a lot of time to sit with it and digest it and be objective about it.
It's a good litmus test.
Yeah. And so everyone I've shown has been like, they've said what you've said. Like there's definite similarities to how I've created in the past, but there's a natural evolution into something that is brand new. And I'm very excited.
Yeah, bring it on. I think we all need a bit more of that in 2022 and beyond. And tell me, in terms of how you're building towards this album, I believe that you're going to be releasing as singles in the build-up. Like, are we culminating into this grand release of an album, or how are you going to actually reach that final point of it being complete, so to speak?
I'm still kind of deciding. I think I have my method set in stone a little bit, but also because I'm shifting the sound, it's like, do I shift the strategy too? So I've got a bit of time to figure that out. Usually what I do is every single song is a single, every single one from the album. And I just feel like, as someone who creates so many assets for every song, it's worth giving them time to breathe instead of just doing the 3 to 4 singles and having 6 to 8 tracks that come out afterwards as like a lump, like launch or drop. And I don't like doing that, because I feel like a lot of songs get buried in the process, and there's so much meaning in every track. Why not give them time to flourish and blossom? So I think I might be doing that again, and then wrapping up the album at the end. But we'll see. You know, I'm working with new people this time, and I've got a lot of external voices coming through, and they have different strategies to me. So it's going to be a conversation to see what they think is appropriate and whether I agree.
And I was going to ask on that topic, are you enjoying that new thing? Like, do you like not getting challenged as such, but like a little bit getting outside that comfort zone and allowing people in? Because it's obviously a very, personal and intimate thing that you've built, and it's completely yourself driving this as a solopreneur, which is my favorite word ever. I'm just stealing that. But like, are you enjoying that aspect of it?
I am. It's still very new to me, and I've found that I haven't had to check with anyone in the past about decisions I've made. So with a few of these bigger decisions, I don't have to run them by them or like get their approval, because it's still my business and they're coming to assist, but it is more of a collaborative effort. And I feel like as a business owner and someone who's looking to develop my own companies and have been for a while, you need to get familiar with that. You can't do everything alone. It's just silly. And it's very egotistical to do that too, thinking all your ideas are the best ideas. They're not, and when people come through with other alternative ideas, it's good to recognize when those are better than yours and allow those things to kind of grow organically within a collective. So I've found that even though it's very new with the distribution company, The Orchard, who I'm with now, I'm finding that they've been very open to my process. They understand that I've been doing this for like 8 years without any help.
Yeah.
And it might be a little bit of a learning curve for me to relinquish a little bit of that to allow them to bring ideas to the table. But the learning curve hasn't been as bad as I thought it would be. I'm a pretty open person, and if they give an idea that I think is better, it's like, screw my idea. Like, that's better, and we'll objectively move forward with what is going to make this song more successful, not just to feed my ego of like, well, no, everything I say is right, because it's not. Yeah. So it's been fun, to be honest, and it's taken a bit of pressure off me, to be honest, to not have to do absolutely every single thing, because it's impossible, especially at this level of my career now. Like, there's too much happening and too much to keep up with. Like, social media itself is a full-time job. Even just running a Discord is a full-time job. So you need people to assist with all the different things so you can delegate to them. And, I've been building that out, and it's been really fun to bring on friends of mine too, not just in the distribution aspect, but the business side of the creativity and the social media as well. So
yeah, and it's amazing bringing in like all those different strengths. And like you said, like no man is an island. Like, you can start it off, and you could. I know you do like 50 million things at once. Like, I'm convinced you've cloned yourself, like, secretly. But it is really nice when you can still have your creativity like come to fruition, but kind of have those different avenues open. And speaking of all the things you are doing, I know it is no secret you are obviously very, very much deep in the world of NFTs as well. You've had your Conscious Collective?
Conscience Cards.
Conscious Cards. So the Conscious Cards, obviously you've done that, and you've got your Lowlyland stuff. Can you elaborate a bit? Like, are we going to see more of that happening with these new releases, or is that all strictly under wraps?
It's not. Maybe it should be.
We can cut it later.
I'm really. Everyone knows I'm really bad at keeping my own secrets. I just say everything because I'm excited about it. Yeah. But the Lowlyland stuff it's somewhat difficult to explain, because Lowly has become its own persona now, which is so interesting. And it's not like I've ever been trying to like develop this split personality or this split character online, but I originally created this separate account so I could speak about Web3 and NFTs without annoying all the people who didn't care about it, because I wanted to speak about it all the time. I believed in what it could be, but I knew that my Jacob Lee fan base wanted music videos and songs and touring. And if I kept talking about, why don't you go and get Ethereum and go and get this digital wallet and buy this collectible, they'll be like, shut up. I'll be like, just give us a song.
Where's the music?
Yeah. So I decided to create a new account, and that has then taken its own form where people now through the Web3 space are literally calling me Lowly. That's my name to them. It's so interesting and weird, and I don't know where that's going, because that was never the intention. But for some reason, I've always liked that word. And so I'm building a company with that word now. And within Web3, you see companies like Yuga Labs or Lava Labs, or there's a whole bunch of different companies that have labs at the end. It's kind of what the culture is doing right now. And so Lowly Labs seemed like something which was evident, and there's alliteration in that.
Oh,
and
my favorite.
It's just, I just freak out with that shit. So, it's a Web3 media company, and I've got people running articles and podcasts and things like that to grow the space, grow the music within the space, and see where that goes. It's still very early in that, but I, again, believe in what it's turning out to be. And there's enough companies now in this space to make it evident. I think I've mentioned this in the past online, but like initially there was some level of delusion to what I was doing because I believed in myself that it was something, but there wasn't enough proof. So many massive companies are in this now. Like you have Nike and Adidas, and I think Tesla, you have Apple, like Spotify, Shopify, they're all creating it. Twitter has NFT integration for their profile pictures. Like it's all in there now. And it's confusing to me why there's still speculation, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, the playing field is just so much wider with all of this as well. Like it's just been so fascinating to see like the doors that never existed like suddenly are there, but they're not even just doors. There's like, tessellations of an unlimited universe in there. So it's pretty amazing. Like, how are you balancing all of this amongst your creativity? Like, how are you able to split your brain into that and then focus on your music and like be releasing? Like, are you striking that balance in a like particular way? Because for a lot of us, like not to get all of your, in-depth personal secrets, but a lot of us, it's hard enough just to like get up and go to work. Like, how are you able to split your brain into all of this?
I'm all over the shop. I have no structure. Nikki will often say, like, have you remembered to do this thing today? I'm like, you never told me that. She's like, I told you 3 times to do this. And I'm like, oh my God. So I am finding that one of my priorities, if not the highest priority for me right now, is to develop more habits towards structure and scheduling. Because it's, again, got to a point now where I can't run everything solo. There's too many ideas and all the ideas are working. So that's, again, it's a good problem to have, but I have recognized that I need to delegate as much as possible and become that person who is kind of overlooking everything and making sure everyone's okay and on track. And that's something I'm literally in the storm right now of figuring out, because my personality is, I've got a very artistic personality. And you'll find most musicians aren't very structured people. They struggle to get out of bed in the morning. So that is how I used to be. However, I do believe I have entrepreneurial tendencies. I've always moved toward that, and I don't know why. But the piece that I lack right now is being more structured and scheduled and working with calendars and like the software, like where we've just integrated like ClickUp and like the Asana type platforms. And with all the people that are coming on, and there's employees here now underneath the Lowly Labs and Philosophical Records and Jacob Lee, like that needs to be put in place. Otherwise, everyone just gets frustrated and annoyed and they won't want to work with me. So, I'm getting there. Yeah. It might take the rest of the year to like properly get there, but we're getting there.
I'm a big believer, better late than never. And I think something like I say, I'll get there eventually. Like I've stopped giving myself like the whole, I have to do this by this week. Like it's just all about like the priorities. And I guess too, being in what you are doing, like stuff changes as we've seen in the last 2 years. Like, you can't always have everything planned out to the nth degree. So yeah, I think end of the year is a good ballpark.
Yeah, we'll see.
But I know too, something that has been coming back a bit more, and I know for yourself, it's been a bit heartbreaking to have to like keep prolonging live music and tours and all of that kind of stuff. Like, let's take the negativity off the table. Can you take me back to a really standout, memorable live moment for you where you performed and what made it so memorable, whether it was something really positive or if it's where everything went wrong? Like, give me a standout Jacob Lee moment on stage.
There's one which always stands out, and there is a video online which captures it. It was in Romania, and I was performing to there were 2 nights, 500 people each, which for me back then was huge. It still is, to be honest. And I landed in Romania. There was a promoter, helping us get to the apartment and get all our stuff ready. And we were walking through the street about to head to the venue, and almost every 3rd minute someone was like, oh my God, it's Jacob. And I was like, what is happening? That doesn't happen to me. Like even when I'm on tour and there's people that come to venues, getting stopped in the street isn't something which happens really. So I was like, why Romania? Like I had no idea that anyone really knew me. Like I knew I had sold some tickets, but not to that extent. So I was on stage singing. I sung my song Demons first. Everyone was singing that, and they sung the whole catalog with me the entire time. And most of them didn't really speak English very well. So that was extremely exciting that they knew my words. But then I jumped back on stage after the encore, and they were all screaming Demons again. They wanted that song again. And I was like, okay. So the first time I played it was with the playback rig. It had some backing and whatnot, and it was quite big. But that second time I just went full acoustic, and I could barely hear my own voice. They were so loud, and I like cried on stage, like, and they were just like clapping for what seemed like 10 minutes. And I was just there like, what the fuck? Like, it was absolutely mental. So that is a moment which stands out to me, and it obviously makes me so happy that that happened, but also pretty sad that I've not been on stage for 2.5 years now. Yeah, totally. Like, I've tried to tour four times in Europe again, like organized everything, accommodation, flights, all of it's been organized, and then COVID cancels it all. So we're trying to do something next year now. We're actually, instead of postponing, we're canceling everything and restarting. Because this tour is cursed. So we're just going to start again.
A fresh start's always good though. Like,
with a brand new title, and everything has changed since we initially began that tour. So we're going to completely rebrand it and start again. And, you know, by 2023, you would assume things will be back to normal.
Well, look, I don't want to say it's not about me, but 23 is my lucky number. So
okay,
like,
nice.
I'm feeling like we've already got good things happening here. Not just because it's Michael Jordan's number. No big deal. But I mean, with that in mind, like, is there anything else between then and now? Like, I guess the good thing is people are going to have all this time to sit with this beautiful new material and like really, because sometimes when people release an album, they instantly tour it. People have heard it, but they haven't been able to really like just sit with it and immerse themselves in it. Like, what else do you want to do in 2022 outside of this? Like, obviously you will have probably a very long list of things you want to tick off, but what are some of the key things you really want to tick off in 2022?
I want to try and develop the most immersive experiences digitally that I can, because I'm not touring until next year, and there's still a lot of this year left. And I have reached a point where I've got enough revenue coming through each month to develop things which I don't think a lot of artists are thinking about. Trying to create landscapes and worlds online that people can go in and either listen to me play, see things I've created, feel immersed within an ecosystem that's been created. It seems so it seems not very organic, but the way that I'm thinking about it is actually very holistic. And I think you can develop these virtual landscapes which people can hang out in. I don't think they're going to, replace a real performance or a real in-person connection at all. But I think it is another window which is accessible now and available now. And I've met enough people through my Web3 endeavors to assist me in the creation of that. And it's interesting and exciting to look at all the momentum that's being generated within this area, because I have 2 different fan bases now completely. I had to build a brand new one from scratch because my Jacob Lee audience, again, didn't care about this kind of stuff. And so I wanted to continue cultivating all of what I gave them, like what they were used to. But the Web3 people, they already knew what digital wallets were. They knew how to transfer and exchange the money. They knew what the actual ecosystem meant. And so I could provide them a whole different experience. And I think, in my opinion, whether it be at the end of this year or later, those 2 worlds will collide. When people start to recognize what this is and it becomes normal. And then I'll have all of my infrastructure built already when no one's taking it seriously right now. Like, I speak about it to a lot of artists and they just go, they've either not heard about it or they've heard about it and think it's stupid. And I'm like, everyone thinks anything new is stupid. Like, you need to have some foresight into where things are going, So
I didn't want to say it, but like something I really wanted to say before, it almost feels like you are being this bridge between 2 very divergent but very, very communal worlds. And I feel like it's going to be exciting to really see that come to fruition, especially when you can actually tour and marry that universe basically together. But to finish us off, I would like to do something a little bit more fun and make it a little bit lighthearted and just get to know you a little bit better. Can you share with me, what is the first live gig you ever attended that wasn't your own?
Oh man, it probably would have been one my dad was playing in with like Normie Rowe or like Digger Revell, like probably one of them. And I probably didn't resonate with the songs at all.
Yeah.
I think that would have had to have been because I remember watching him when I was growing up. But if it's one that I chose to go to, and plus it was so great watching my dad play, but like it just wasn't the music that I would listen to. But I would say probably Parkway Drive.
Oh, come on, stop making it cooler than me. That's the best.
It was so much fun. Like I don't think people realize how much of a metalhead I am. Like I listen to that stuff pretty much all the time, and Parkway was one of the first bands I listened to in that genre, and then I went down the rabbit hole of listening to almost everything, like, you know, even to the extent of like Chiodos and like Silverstein or Silverstein, however you pronounce it.
Yes.
All of those kind of like more niche metal bands. Escape the Fate, Bless the Fall, Bring Me the Horizon, like, you know, a whole bunch. I didn't get into like the whole Job for a Cowboy type stuff. I don't know if you've heard of them, where it's just like the whole time.
Occasionally I'm like, I can get it, but then I'm like, I can't just sit there and just listen to just that because I start to just get like a little bit wound up. So I have to like tone it down a little bit.
It's so like, I understand. Well, when people who don't enjoy metal say how aggressive it is, I'm like, if you look deeper, there's a lot of like empathy within that music. The Job for a Cowboy stuff, I'm like, I get it. That's so aggressive.
Yeah.
And so I never really got into that, to be honest. But going back to the question, Parkway, I think, was one of my first.
And just to see how far they've come, it's just so exciting. And who doesn't love to see a drum kid upside down on fire?
Seriously.
Like, and his hair doesn't catch on fire somehow.
I know, it doesn't make any sense. I never expected them to do that kind of stuff because they're just like surfy dudes, but they went for it.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm so into it. And I guess on that, given you've seen that if that's how you started off, like, I don't even know if I can ask this question, but is there someone that you haven't seen live yet that you absolutely would love to see eventually when we can actually all do this?
Who would be really interesting? I feel like there's a better answer than what I'm actually going to come through with.
Oh, no, the answer's always the right thing, don't worry.
Is it?
Yeah.
I think the only reason I'm saying this is because I'm obsessed right now. I just love Jaden Smith.
Oh, yeah, I'm there.
Like, there's
I love
nothing
it.
like, I mean, you could say he's iconic, I guess. He's got a song called Icon. But I'm nonstop listening to him right now, and I think he would be fun. There's definitely a better answer that I'll think of after this podcast, but that's
it's
the
always
one.
the way. Yeah, and
That's
I think
the
stick with your first instinct. I think
All
that's
right.
a good way to go.
Yeah.
And finally, I mean, I don't always like to make people pick an album as such that they would, you know, take on the desert island kind of thing. But what is the album that you still cling on to that was a really formative album? Not necessarily just who you are as an artist, but like just something that is really intrinsic to who you are as a person. Is there a particular album? I mean, we can broaden it and say artist if you can't pick that, but is there something?
An album came to mind, and it's definitely not intrinsic to who I am now, but it's something that I listen to and have a whole bunch of nostalgia for. And you know, this section of the podcast is meant to be fun, but I think this particular album, which is extremely sad, helped me feel less alone during some of those moments when I was a lot younger and didn't really understand much of the world and felt, you know, out of place. I really, really enjoyed Suicide Silence by Bring Me the Horizon. Like, you know, the song like Sadness and even Suicide Season, I think was the song. Those songs are so dark, but they really resonated with me when I was younger, especially as an indie artist who, especially back then, had no idea how I was going to do any of this. Like, there was no trajectory for me. It was like, I like this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think I'm good at this. I don't know yet, but I think so. And even though a lot of the music isn't about like building your career or anything, like a lot of rap artists will speak about like their come up. I was going through a bit back then, which I think it helped with. So I would listen to that for years, that entire album on and off. Like, I haven't listened to it in a while, but that one comes to mind as something which helped shift me when I was younger into more lyrical music, to be honest. I would listen to that because the lyrics had such depth to them. And I think those types of albums helped me with my trajectory as a lyricist, if you want to self-proclaim that. So,
well, I think it's a very fair thing to proclaim, and many others have. So I think it's a very fair assessment, but also an amazing album. And I know we are going to have another amazing album in your very own album coming up and all these incredible singles. So I cannot wait to see you live eventually as well and get all of that goodness. But here's to an incredible 2022 and to some incredible musical adventures from yourself, Jacob Lee.
Thank you, Tiana. I appreciate you.